Good. So we are live and we are direct. And today I'm delighted to have my brother from another mother, Mr. Abdul Yoki, join me for the first ever episode of Coffee with Kofi. And the aim of it, I know I spoke to you about this, Abdul, is really a conversation to share the stories of leaders who have answered the call to pivot and do some of the things that they love for themselves, for their families, or indeed the wider communities that they serve. So I'm
Yeah.
super delighted that you said yes and joined as an early adopter of the
Yeah,
conversation.
no worries. I'm privileged. Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. So enough about me, but it'd be wonderful if you could share a short introduction of who you are and what you've created in Sang Zarrin, really.
Yeah, so well, I'm a recruiter by trade now, and have been for about 13 years, I think, for my sins. And covered various markets. Started off focused in the technology space, then moved into sort of your more change transformation on the interim side for a long period of time, and grew a strong network in that space. And then more recently, I created Sang Zarrin, which has been going for about 4 years or a little bit over that, to focus on the finance. But we're quite niche into the private wealth management space, and I can obviously elaborate on that as we go through.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you. And I think you sold yourself short because I was trying to remember when we worked together.
Mm.
And I think it's 15 years ago, you know.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to hide my age, I think, there or something.
Yeah. Sorry, I've outed you now. I've outed you
No,
now.
I'm
So,
joking. Yeah.
yeah, I think that was about 15 years ago that we worked together. And always someone that brought a lot of energy and authenticity to the world of work before it was the cool thing to be done. So glad that our friendship has lasted this time and been able to follow the progress of your journey as well, which is brilliant. So yeah, I mean, a bit more about Sang Zarrin would be good in terms of what is the main focus. I know you mentioned finance, but finance is a super broad term. So what are your main areas of focus?
Yeah, so to take it back a little bit before Sang Zarrin, I worked for a firm for a little over a year, and I mean, the reason why I left essentially is COVID kicked in,
Gosh, yeah.
and I was put on furlough as one of the more senior, I guess, employees within the business. What happened is they had to take some, tough decisions, which I was affected by. And in all reality, I've always wanted to run my own business and be
Okay.
master of my own destiny.
Yeah.
But I think yourself, when you're employed and on a decent salary, that buffer always it's sort of always that it gives you that reason maybe to think twice about going alone, whether you're supporting a family or you've got a mortgage or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge of moving away from something like that is always the question you ask yourself. But I think as soon as I was put on furlough, I got off the call to the guys because we were all working from home at that time. So this happened over a call on Zoom or MS Teams, if I remember. And I just said, I said to myself, I never want to be in that position again, where someone's sort of or I'm not master of my own destiny, essentially, and therefore I put the wheels in motion to start structuring my own firm, and then a couple of months, 2 to 3 months after that, I was made redundant, and Sang Zarrin was born. And then, interestingly, the firm I worked for at the time focused on the project management, change transformation space, and all of the projects that we had on at the time were all being canned, right? So it was this idea of I'm a recruiter by profession, and this is what I know, and we're in the middle of COVID. So you want to start your own business. How are you going to go about doing that? Right. So a lot of questions we asked. My wife was there for me, and we had many conversations about what to do, how to do it. And I had a couple of ideas. And then, interestingly, I connected with a family member of mine, whose cousin essentially works in the private wealth management space. They suggested that they could introduce me to their network. And private wealth management is a very interesting industry in the sense that you could almost call it recession-proof if you're working at the right end of the market, which is the front office side. So we're very focused on the sort of professional or private bankers and relationship managers, those individuals that develop the relationships and bring business to the banks that they work for. Okay. And the idea of moving an individual who's developed a network over 10 to 15 years in this space is that they take the network that they've cultivated and developed over the span of their careers and onboard them onto the platform of said bank that we've introduced them into, essentially. So therefore, if you find the right profile, whether the markets are up or down, the institutions, if you're working with the right demographic of institution, will always be open to exploring and hiring if both parties find an agreement. So yeah, that's what Sang Zarrin is, and we were able to do quite a bit of business, and I was able to place people and charge fees that are the most I've ever done in my career. So it's no one wanted COVID, but for me, I like to look at silver linings when there's situations like that take place, and that's definitely one for me.
No, that resonates a great deal, and I think it's interesting shedding the light on the private banking side, because it sounds like the bankers will have a certain AUM, or sort of assets that under management that they have, and so if they move to another organization, if a percentage of that comes with them, because for me, I feel that people buy people at the end of the day. If you build up trust, etc., and that comes to the bank, then I see how it's quite an additive situation for an individual to join an organization who are looking to always expand and grow their AUM. The silver linings bit, that also resonates, because as you've been doing it longer than I have, this road less traveled, I think it definitely does call for optimism and faith. So yeah, I think that's brilliant. And the name Sang Zarrin, I try and place it. Does it have a meaning?
Yeah, it comes from the Persian. I mean, when I looked at names, I spoke with my wife on it, and she comes from that background, and it's sort of like precious stone type thing. That's the connotation behind the name. So I didn't want. I wanted us to stand out a little bit, and I didn't want the usual, I guess, Lawrence and Associates, or the typical term for a search firm or recruitment business, So
okay, amazing. And when we were kicking about sort of 15 years ago, you were very much UK based, London. I remember. Where are you now? But and also, where is the business operating?
Yeah, so we're based in UK, London. We also have a subsidiary in the Netherlands because I work between a city called Utrecht, where my family are based, and London. And yeah, but that was one of the, I guess the learns that I had was also developing and growing into new markets, right? So initially, first couple of years, about 70 to 80% of our business was all Middle East, actually, where we've got a very strong network. And I actually hired an ex-client of mine who worked for the HR team of one of the businesses we recruited for. Yeah, she ended up joining the business anyway. But yeah, we have a strong network out there, but also we have a presence in Switzerland. Obviously, that's a strong market in the private wealth management space, Luxembourg, London as well. So those are predominantly the main focus of our business from a markets perspective.
Fantastic. And part of the desire for me to start this up was to really share stories of everyday people, everyday people who have gone about answering that call to pivot, which you've explained, in terms of COVID coming and finding yourself on furlough, and then the redundancy, and then wanting to be master of your own destiny. Along the way, I wondered what some of your key lessons from leadership, be it for yourself or be it for the team, just what some of those have been for you, if you had any that came to mind that you could share to inspire others or to help others in terms of do not do this, either way.
I think running your own business builds resilience, and sales in general, you have to be resilient. You get knockbacks. You're constantly told no. You've got this general cause to tell people why you, or explain why you on a regular basis, and you get knocked back more than you get the answer yes, essentially. So I think for me, the resilience that I've built up, especially in COVID as well, it was a lot of hard work, a lot of business development to unearth those opportunities where you're able to transact essentially. Yeah, so that for me is one, and the other side of it is generally I'm a glass half full type of individual, but this market will test you. But then also, when you're supporting other people and things aren't going as well as they should be or could be, or forecasts you've put in place aren't quite, you're not hitting where you feel that you should be, you sort of have to, I guess, cover off from and shield people from that part of the business and keep everybody motivated essentially. So it's that positivity that you have to keep through those times. That can be a challenge. You're inevitably you're constantly going to question yourself, because especially as a business owner who is working alone, yeah, you can run things past your partner. I brought on an executive coach at one point, who, again, we would meet once a month, right? So you're constantly questioning the path you're putting your business on, if the plan is right, in those challenging moments, until fortunately for me, we've had a level of success which reaffirms the decisions you've made.
With you.
But along that path, before there's some consistency, there's constant a level of questioning, if things are right, and that can be a hard place to be sometimes, I think.
I can definitely relate to that. And something that you said that I really wanted to pick up on was the shielding piece. As I start out now, I'm a solopreneur, so I haven't got the same dynamics as you all have. But how do you balance the desire to be authentic, potentially transparent, with what can and what should be shared with the team?
It's interesting because the great thing I think about recruitment, and when we worked together in the firm we worked for, you were always given the autonomy to develop the business to a certain extent within a framework as you saw best, and based on the market you covered, right? So I feel that you have this level of business understanding and acumen that comes from that. And your understanding of forecasting and the expectations you put on yourself. So I've had that experience from previous roles that I've held, and then I've run teams. And again, within those businesses, you have your own business. You have a profit and loss. You have a budget that you need to hit, and you support those people and take them along the journey together to get to whatever it is that you need to at the end of calendar or fiscal year, however you record that. So I think there's a level of support you give that, as long as people are doing the right types of activity, you hope that it will manifest itself in the results that both parties want, right? And so, we pick a number at the end of the year for individuals to hit. How are we going to get there? Well, this is the sort of activity you need to be doing each day, which manifests itself in X per week, per month, etc. And all you can do is, as long as you agree on something and that individual is adhering to that, you support them the best they can and keep them motivated in that sense, right? And then it's for me to deal with the points where I may need to pick up the slack if someone else isn't quite hitting what they need to. But you have an overall target as a business, and sometimes I've been part in teams where one person is the star player, for example, but you cannot underestimate all the other things that maybe someone who is not hitting the numbers that the star player is, but as a team, that general activity and the drive and push to succeed, you give them a level of I'm trying to think of the word, but recognition for what they're delivering, though they might not be hitting the numbers, as long as they're doing that, So,
that makes a lot of sense to me. So in that, what comes to my mind is almost you're looking at the sum of the parts and playing the role of an orchestrator, not an orchestrator, a conductor. So you've your star player who sometimes you're like, play louder, but then you've got the supporting musicians that are adding to the music that the organization is making, if you will. So no, thank you for sharing that. And I think you've already covered some of what I was going to ask you around some of the obstacles that you're proud to overcome from my perspective. But are there any other obstacles that you could point to that have been particularly juicy, challenging, that when you look back on, you're like, yeah, like I'm really glad that I found a way through with that?
Yeah, I guess, moving into a new market is a bit of the unknown in that sense, right? If it was change and transformational technology, you sort of know exactly what you need to do to hit the markers that you put in place. But I think, when I first came into this market, you look at the types of salaries that these people are attaining, that you're placing, and then from that you deduce down what the fee should look like based on the percentages that you're charging, and it is more of a lucrative market. So very candidate focused, and the candidates are hard to come by. So hardcore headhunting, right? And so it's very easy to get lost in the whole, if you place someone, this fee is going to be, and I have had some really good fees for the market I've come from and I'm in now. And I remember, at the end of the 6-month period where you say to yourself, okay, generally that's when you say to yourself as a senior recruiter, I need to be hitting, placing people by this point. It's you especially if you're in a new market, you've learned, you've understood the nuances of in this case private wealth. And anyway, I just remembered, long story short, I was right on the back end of doing a placement where this lady in Dubai was having a call with her future employer about the package, and it was supposed to be a call with HR just to walk her through the salary, the bonuses, everything attached to it. And it would have been agreed, actually. And an hour before this call, I got a call from the HR to say, we've caught wind that she's been made redundant. She'd been made redundant maybe 2 days before by this firm who had run this global exercise of reducing costs. And basically, as a general rule of thumb, they didn't hire anyone who was made redundant or not in employment for whatever reason. It didn't matter. That was their the way in which they operated. And so I got the call to say, this won't be happening. And that was like an hour before this placement was supposed to be sealed. And I just remember sitting there. It was in COVID, and I was sitting on my dining table, just thinking to myself, what is going on? Is this the market I'm in? Right? I was like an hour away from patting myself on the back and saying, I've hit the target. I've done it within the 6-month period, and I just remember having to just take stock of what was going on and think about, is this the right market to be in? Should I be doing this? Should I actually go and look for employment? Because there were people that were open to hiring me. And yeah, that I think that was a point in this process where I really do look back on and think, it could have been very different, but I decided to carry on and push on. And that's the resilience piece I'm talking about.
When and I feel for you, because I can almost imagine that whether it's something cold and fizzy or whatever, go out with your family, that would have been the point where you're like, I've arrived, I've put in the work, I've done it, I've made it happen. And to have the wind taken out of your sails in the moment,
absolutely.
It's just, I actually feel it for you now. I'm feeling it for you now. Many years ago, like 5 years ago or so now. But I think what I do know is, as I speak to people on the journey that I'm on and have done over the past years, challenges will come. You know, we all face some challenges, are facing challenges, will face some challenges. And I feel that when those happen, it calls for you to ask, what is the question I'm being asked here? And generally, it is a test in some way, shape, or form of your character and the resilience that forms part of that, but also your creativity, because in a way, you have to reinvent the reality that you had in that moment. It's like, that's not going to happen. What can you make happen? And really proud of you in terms of how you pushed on and didn't throw the towel. So thank you. And in terms of the tools that you've utilized to elevate yourself, as well as Sang Zarrin, to meet the challenges and develop the market presence you've got, etc. What can you share around those elements that have contributed to your growth and success?
Yeah, so I alluded to the point that I took on an executive coach, and she was really good at helping me unpack some of the ideas I had to develop the business and where I wanted to take it to. You know, things around the website, the tone of the business, what the future could look like. Because when you're working on, you know, as a leader on your own, as the only owner of the business, essentially, it's not, a lot of the ideas are in your head. You know, you're trying to understand, and you've got no one to really, you day-to-day bounce ideas off, and you know, just say, look, what do you think about this? Do you think, and someone really, I needed someone to challenge the ideas that I had, so I could walk away and say, okay, fine, I've developed that to a certain extent, and I've run it by someone, and they've asked the right questions to develop it to the point where it needs to. Now let's go and execute. So that was helpful on that side. And then I think as a business, we're trying to utilize technology as much as possible. You know, I think nowadays, you know, when I look back on when I was younger and started to run teams, I think there was this misconception that success was how many people you had in your team. And you know, the more you could add into your team, you get your budget to a certain point, and it's, you know, let's get more people in. And I think that, you know, my idea, look, and when I say this, I'm not saying it's not a level of success. Different businesses run in different ways, right? But the idea I have is not to have 100 or 200 man business. I think it's more about, you know, bringing on really smart people and creating a platform that enables them to be very successful. And to do that, I think technology is so important to free up time for people to do what I call high value stuff.
Right.
Anything business development led, whether that's focusing on running an event, going out and seeing people face to face. I just remember, you know, there were times where there were roles where I felt there was a lot of admin type work that I feel nowadays with the technology that's out there. You know, we spoke about an AI note taker, for example. Those types of tools I think could be invaluable for small businesses as well. Where you can free people up to just do the high value work. So those are types of things, that we're exploring and looking at as a business as well.
That makes sense. I think it sounds like you're looking for those marginal but additive efficiency gains, you know, in terms of using people to do the things that they uniquely can do, AI or no AI. You know, I find that when you meet someone, that's what you buy into, the energy and the authenticity of the person and the passion they have for what they're doing and their understanding of your requirements. You know, it's not sales back in the days, I think could be something where you sort of you show up and this is what I've got, and take it or leave it. And I think that nowadays it's much more consultative and relationship driven, more so than a numbers game. So great that you're investing in those sorts of things that can take you forward. So that's fantastic. I thought to just pivot a little bit to 5 years on, pretty much. When you look to the future, if you dare to do such things, what are some of the future goals that you've got for the business?
For me, we're focused on a niche market. I think in private wealth, I'd like to move into different markets and geographies in that sense. It's nice to be present in the markets you're operating in, but I don't think it's a necessity nowadays. And I've seen that for myself, essentially. So when I talk about new markets and geographies, yes, there may be offices where we establish an office in a region of the world which enables us to operate more effectively in the market we're serving. But yeah, so those are some of the ideas. But I guess the ecosystem that sits around private wealth management, you have areas such as private equity, for example, the hedge fund landscape, investment banking, venture capitalism. Those are areas that I think, because for me, the best businesses, recruitment businesses or search firms, allow consultants to collaborate. And I think I just want to, the idea is to build a business which is connected and allows people to collaborate and be entrepreneurial in that sense. And then you're able to create more solutions and those types of, and where that goes to, I think I'm flexible with it. I don't have a hard and fast rule. I'd like to bring in more people with ideas so we can sort of flesh them out together and develop that growth. But that's the plan. Yeah.
Great. Again, it speaks to me that you're not fully tied to the how you're going to do it and where you need to be. And that's, if there's something that I've learned about this road less traveled, is what I'm calling it, of running your own ship and being master of your own destiny. It's that I think you got to connect to what it is that you want and why you want it, but then the how, just let that happen. Because one conversation, one incredible hire, one just opportunity from a client that you never thought of could just take you. I've seen this already, like in the 6 months I've been going. It could just take you in different directions, and then before you know it, you're sort of building services that are required, that are additive, that you never thought of, really. So that does it speaks to me when you say
you're so right. I this resonates with me so much, because I remember. And I think this is one of the reasons I wanted to run my own business. I had so many ideas, as I've always been a bit of an entrepreneur and thinking outside of the box, and worked for businesses that were very successful, but brought ideas to the table. And you always came across someone senior within the business who had the narrative of, well, this is the way we've always done it. And it's just like, I mean, you're telling me that you don't want to explore maybe a way of the consultants on the floor maybe working in a more collaborative, more entrepreneurial way, because of the old way that something's always done. So we are never going to change this process or the way we operate in this area. And it was just. And so in my mind, the learn from that is just, I never want to be that person. I want to always be open-minded and able to explore, but within a framework. I think the framework is the most important thing. Yes, we're going to get from here to here, but, you might do that a little bit and come back to go forward. and as long as you're open-minded in that sense, then good things can happen. And I think you attract good people with that as well, right? Who want to add value, essentially. And I'm not just talking about people that are experienced as well. I think that the inexperienced people can bring ideas from areas that you never thought of previously. And so an environment has to be created for ideas to flourish and develop.
Yeah, you know, a book Ray Dalio has written, Principles. I don't know if you read that one.
Yeah.
And he talks about getting into the psychology and understanding the strengths of the different players on the team, you know, because you've got blue sky thinkers who are visionaries but not necessarily detail focused, and just as a generalization, but understanding everyone's strengths and having the forum to bring those ideas to the table and engage in thoughtful debate around what is the best way forward. It's more enriching. To be honest, I think many of us want to be master of our destinies, whether it's in the construct of a paid employment or entrepreneurialism, and having the opportunity to bring your ideas to the table and to see them grow with a leader that has that growth mindset. That's important. Like you said, I laugh. I can think of some, not necessarily where we work, but I can think of some who definitely status quo all day long. But having a leader that allows and nurtures the diversity of thought is something I strongly believe in, because when we all come together and feel included and can create magic that is uniquely ours, I think sky's the limit. I really do. I think
absolutely
there's this new opportunity just waiting to be unlocked with a bit of discourse and direction. So I love that. And I'm just thinking about some other things around you, and this is the bit where I thought I'd ask you some quick fire questions that are off the books.
Okay.
So off the book questions, just to get to know you a bit more. And my first one is, can you think of a leader, a manager that's particularly inspired you? And it could be someone you work with or someone that you read about, but is there anyone that sort of comes to mind?
Yes. Nelson Mandela.
Strong.
Yeah.
And the second question I have for you is more of a pop culture one. What is your favorite song right now?
You know, oh god, I'm really bad when it comes to current artists and music and all the rest. But I've been listening to more like live jazz recently.
Okay.
So specific artists that I'll be honest with you, I couldn't give you one off the top of my head right now. But yeah, I just love live jazz at the moment, where the opportunity presents itself. I get out and get out to listen.
That's totally fine. Favorite book or movie, depending on if you like to read or you like to watch?
Well, I've always loved the Godfather trilogies. That was probably my favorite. Favorite book was probably Homo Sapien.
Okay.
Have you heard it or heard of it? Sorry, by the author's name I've forgotten off the top of my head. But yeah, it was a great book to read. Just the development of the human race and how it evolved through time, and I found it fascinating.
Brilliant. And what is your go-to saying in difficult moments, if you've got one?
Wow. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Strong. Thank you. And if you could go back in time and tell your younger self one thing what would that be?
And stand still and take in the moment.
That has tickled me and given me some. That is really.
I'm glad I've done that for you this morning.
Thank you very much. I think I'll take that and tell my older self to do that more often.
Yeah,
I
think it's definitely one that when I look back on, there were a lot of moments in my life, and you do that as a youngster because that's just how we are, especially growing up in a London. But yeah, I think when I look back on times, I've been very lucky, and I took those moments for granted for sure.
Yeah, so something about being present and appreciating where you are. That speaks to me, and also reflection, which is a big part of what I encourage people to do more of, because I subscribe to the view, shall I say, that we learn more from reflecting on our experiences than from the experiences themselves.
Yeah.
So amazing. But thank you so much. You pleased to know Coffee with Kofi has happened. I didn't see you drink a sip of coffee at all.
I did say I had one. I was just enjoying this chat so much. I didn't want to break it at any point.
No, thank you. So cheers to you, Abdul, and with you and Sang Zarrin, all the best as you break through new frontiers, break new ground, embrace new technologies, and leave a legacy doing the things that you love. But thank you so much for being the first guest on the podcast. And no doubt we have to come back and have a part 2 and just see in a little bit of time like how things are shaping up and the new things that have come into your orbit as well.
I always have time for you, Kofi, so all good.
No, I appreciate it. Very kind. Christmas hamper is coming your way, my
friend. Exactly.
All right, have a good day. Love to the family, all right?
You too. Same to you. Take care.
Cheers. Bye.